for the green light from our tech team. Very good. There it is, the green light. So welcome. We're here for a session on how cities can support the development and improvement of paratransit. I'm Franz Fries-Gross. I'm the World Bank's Regional Director for Infrastructure, including urban and paratransit, in West and Central Africa. Sort of a solution that will be around for decades. So the first one is we need them. We need them for ridership, feeding into the mass transit solution on major axes and corridors, and we need them to reach into areas that are as yet unserved by BRTs, light rail, and other high volume solutions. The second thing I just wanted to bring out is that paratransit is here to stay. So it's not like cities that have introduced light rail solutions, and looking at Abimbola in Lagos, or BRT systems, etc., see a disappearance of the paratransit operators. On the contrary, I was talking to Simon yesterday. It seems like Cape Town, for example, even though it's introduced a BRT system quite long ago, the ridership in the paratransit system is still more than 10 times as high as the ridership in the BRT system. So I think in Cape Town, the BRT moves 1.5% of all people, right? And I think the paratransit is still something close to 20%, right? So everything else is individual mobility. So it's not like one disappears. It's actually very much a long-term part of the fabric, at least in quite a number of cities. The third thing, maybe just to motivate the discussion, is that investing in paratransit, making it safer, more efficient, more attractive to users, is actually economically sensible. And let me just motivate that. I mean, before mass transit solutions came along, you had commercially viable operators that covered their own capital investment, that cover their own operating costs with all the externalities, but somehow they were there. And so instead of a new BRT system, or in addition to that, these aren't systems you have to jumpstart from zero. You don't have to invest from zero the CapEx just to get these systems going. You have them. And so you can make, by just having an investment at the margin to basically corporatize some of the players, to help them with fleet renewal, to build capacity of the operators, you can get to a point where users actually perceive a far better experience in terms of safety, reliability, and service quality. So that's why we're here to discuss how local governments, but also development partners from around the world, and we've got several of them here on this panel, how can we all work to make these paratransit operators better, a better part of a system that they're going to be a part of in many cities for a long time. So maybe with that, by way of background, let me get started and turn to our first panelist. It's Jean-Jacques Elune. He's the executive manager of Kodatu, which, for those of you who don't know, it's an NGO that works on urban mobility issues. It's been doing this, I think, for 40, 50 years, right? 45 years. So Jean-Jacques, let me just ask you, based on Kodatu's experience internationally, what are some of the most challenging aspects that local authorities have to overcome when they try to professionalize paratransit operators?
Okay, thank you for the question.
Oh, and I should say 3 minutes, and we have a tough gatekeeper here who's got a nasty 1 minute sign. We'll do one run through the panel. If we have time, we'll do a second one. But please go ahead.
Okay, 3 minutes for 45 years of debates. That's a challenge. So I'm just going to go straight forward to the question. Thank you. I think that one very challenging aspect today for local authorities is clearly how you build trust and collaboration with the paratransit industry stakeholders. And for many reasons, it's a very tough subject, maybe one of the most complex subjects that we face this week and in the last decades, and for the next decades, as you just said, paratransit is here and is going to stay here for a long time. And one reason for that, for this complexity, in my opinion, it is because local authorities also have to professionalize in a certain way, because they have to be able to play their role in the process. And their role is very important. It's not just to the operators to change, it's also to them. It's a complex system of actors. So as transforming transportation is solutions oriented, I want to indicate a very powerful tool that we are using right now in the case of Madagascar, and that we are, because we are currently working on a pilot program with the municipality, the ministry, and in partnership with the French Development Agency. And we are creating a new route of minibuses to demonstrate how one can improve the quality of service for the users and the rentability for the operators. So this tool that I will present into more details tomorrow during the Paratransit day is basically what it is, an Excel spreadsheet that simulates the revenue and expenditure account and balance sheet of a minibus on this particular new route. So it's quite a complex Excel spreadsheet, but very easy to use because you have three colors. One color is for the operators, what they can do. For example, how much they pay their driver. One color is for the public authority, what they can do, for instance, are they able to provide a dedicated line just before an important intersection to increase the commercial speed of minibuses? And the last color is for the variables that both the private and the public actors have to negotiate. For example, what kind of new minibuses are we going to put on this line, the technical specifications. And then we create, right now we are organizing workshops on the ground together with the operators and the public actors, and they have to understand each other, negotiate, and in particular, the public sector has to understand the economic model of the minibus. And that's very useful to create this understanding between the stakeholders. So tomorrow morning, there is more on this particular initiative. Thank you.
Excellent. So thanks for that, Jean-Jacques. So I take away from that, basically understanding the financials of the paratransit operators, creating that awareness in the public authorities, and helping them help the paratransit operators stay profitable, right? So what does it take in that? Abimbola, you run a giant transport system. I've been to see it. You are the managing director of the Lagos Metropolitan Area Transit Authority, LAMAT. And what I saw when I visited Lagos the last time, two beautiful rail lines just recently launched on top of a BRT that's been around for quite a while. What's your strategy for incorporating or integrating the paratransit operators into that sort of more structural system of mass transit corridors?
Okay, so thank you very much. And yes, Lagos is huge and the challenge is massive, but as Lamata, there are ways that we're looking at it. The first thing is that we have looked at ways in which we need to deal with this from the perspective of exactly what you said, that the paratransit will become a feeder system. So for us, what we've done is we have what we call a bus reform initiative that looks at the hierarchy of buses that we expect to have in Lagos. So like you say, we have the BRT that run on their own, and then we have what we call the standard route buses, which will be buses that run in amongst traffic. And then the last of that is a first and last mile bus service. And that is where the paratransit, in our opinion, will sit. And that means that we have to identify where they run. Like you say, they will feed the main lines, they will feed the bus terminals, they will feed the BRT terminals, they will feed the rail lines, and they will feed the jetty terminals. And from Lamata's perspective, we've carried out like a bus route network. We understand the routes that they today ply. When deep conversations with the unions so that they know that we as Lamata, we're not looking to eradicate them. If anything, we're looking to bring them into the fold. I always say this, regulation is not strangulation. We expect to tap from the experience and the expertise that they bring to the table after years of working in this space. But we want them to work with the authority. We don't want them to be as they are, because there are so many challenges with the operation of a paratransit system, even in Lagos as we see it now. There are so many ways in which it can be detrimental to the state, in the sense that it can be used from a criminal perspective, but it is a huge asset to the state. Like you described, more than 70% of our transportation needs are met by these damfools. Obviously, we're rolling out mass transportation, and we need to find that niche for them. But I think today, Lagos is very clearly having the right conversations. The unions are starting to understand that there is a need for us to collaborate, and that collaboration is starting to unfold. And we are confident that in the next few years, there will be that relationship, that synergy between the authority and the unions, such that their members will feel comfortable with Lamata. There's so many things that we're doing with them at the moment. And I can say that very comfortably, that we will use them to feed our systems.
Can we, Abimbola, before you pass the mic, but talk a little bit about what are some of the things, the incentives you're providing them to assume that role that you want them to assume, right? That's the first and last one. I understand, like, aren't you guys looking at fare integration, for example?
Okay, so for us, there's we're encouraging them to go cashless. But more importantly, we're actually carrying out a study as I speak. It's the Bus Industry Transition Program, where we're having deep conversations with the unions, and they have been very responsive. In fact, we're really very pleased about how it's going. And what that means is that they are talking to us and we are talking to them. What we have both realized is that nobody is going to come out of this ecstatic. Everybody is going to have to move and shift. But from the way the conversations are going and the responses we're getting and the levels of conversations that are occurring right now, we're starting to understand what it is they will want from us and what it is we're willing to give. Because at the end of the day, we need to understand that we don't have deep pockets. And they run today as independents, and they're able to run their own business. And we don't want to strangle that, right. But we just want to work with them so that their businesses become better, have better access to all sorts of funding and things like that, that will make their business grow, so that they can be trusted. When we back them, then there will be that level of trust from the financiers to say, okay, they're part of an organization that already exists. And in fairness, we already have them working on our BRTs. One of the ways that we drew them to us was that we said to them, you form a cooperative, a company, and you will run one of our BRTs. And they've been doing that for the past 4 years. So there are relationships that they can lean on and know that we mean business and we're not looking to eradicate them. Excellent.
Excellent. Let's turn to Loknath. He's the managing director of Kochi Metro Rail Limited. When I talked to Loknath just a few minutes before the panel started, he said there's 2 places on the planet that are God's own country. One of them, Scotland. I don't know if there's any Scottish people here. And the other is Kerala, right? So Loknath, tell us, you get 30 seconds.
I belong to a small city with a 3 million population. It's called the Queen of Arabian Sea. This paratransit thing, we have started something called the water metro. I just, with the kind permission of the chair, I wanted to just show a small video of 2 minutes. So that explains, so that I keep my time. Yeah.
I'll give you extra 2 minutes. Go ahead. Yeah. I didn't know this was coming, but.
The initiative of an integrated water transport system called Water Metro, conceived by the Government of Kerala perfectly aligns with Honorable Prime Minister's vision of Atmanirbhar Bharat to serve Kochi city with 78 battery-powered hybrid electric boats. The unique Water Metro project will ride the waves of sustainable public transport over 76 route kilometers, connecting 38 state-of-art Water Metro terminals around Kochi to the city center. It would be a major boost to trade, business, and mobility of the islanders and improve their livelihood. Expecting a daily ridership of 34,000 passengers in the initial phase, the 747 crore project, with a financial assistance of 85 million euros from German financial agency KfW, Water Metro will decongest the roads and reduce the carbon footprint of the city. The aluminium catamaran, that is twin hull boats, designed and made in Kochi by the Cochin shipyard, has a super efficient hull that will not impact the aquatic flora and fauna while moving through the backwaters like a swan. The state-of-the-art air-conditioned boats operating under a single command and control will be the largest fleet of electric boats anywhere in the world, saving an estimated 44,000 metric tons of carbon emissions per annum when completed. Equipped with LTO batteries that are the safest of batteries commercially available, superchargers that charge the boats in just 15 minutes, and the latest of navigational and communication equipment, Water Metro boats prove that India can lead the world in technological solutions and innovations. The concrete floating pontoons makes the Water Metro disabled-friendly that enable persons with motor disability to board the boats on their own. Working in the same manner like the Metro Rail, Water Metro can be replicated in other cities across the country that have navigable water bodies, fulfilling our commitment to a sustainable future for mankind. Water Metro. Think blue, go green.
So I'm left with 1 minute. Oh, yeah, sure. Okay, this is one of the, I can say that this is independent, standalone, but it complements as a feeder to the metro rail, which is also there. In addition to that, we have all the kind of feeder bus services, again, electric, auto rickshaws, that is three-wheelers, and is again electric. That is serves as paratransit thing in the city, beautiful city of Cochin. And what is happening is that it is governed. What I wanted to say here is that it is governed with legislation. That is very crucial in a democracy. The legislation is called the Metropolitan Transport Authority Act. So it actually combines everything so that the coordination amongst the various agencies are done. So the cities, various, say, for example, the private bus operators has to also come on board. They can't say that they will run on their own. This is what is Kochi. Thank you.
But before you pass the mic, Lotnan, talk a little bit, how did you get these auto rickshaws to redefine themselves as feeders to your water metro, to your metro rail, etc.? And surely there must have been some opposition, right? Some people feeling like you're stealing their business. How did you bring them over? How did you bring them on board?
We have to give them good tea.
Tea.
No, jokes apart. I mean, I say that it's very difficult because there are trade unions from different part, as ma'am said right now, very difficult to bring them. But it took almost 1 year to bring them. And then they realized that they are going to make money. And they are now making money. That is, initially they were thinking that they will not make money if they run as a feeder service from a metro station or a water metro station. Now they are really earning money. So they are very happy. And that's the actually key. We did a lot of actually explanations and told them that it will work. The auto rickshaws are very good. I mean, very state of art, and I mean, liked by the people to use them as last mile connectivity. It is now working. And that society is governing and they pay us money. And we make a lot of money out of that.
Well, sounds like a good investment on your tea.
Yeah, it's a good investment. Actually, thanks to the AFD of France, actually, they actually funded this project. And now they are very happy that you are also making money.
Excellent, excellent. Let's go to Tiano next to you. So Tiano, Tiano is the managing director of CETUD, the Conseil Exécutif des Transports Urbains Durables. So it's the Dakar Metropolitan Transport Authority, and it's actually one of the oldest in Africa anywhere. And I know the World Bank is very proud, together with other partners, who've been working on Dakar's first BRT line, which went into service, I think, last April or May. But even before that happened, 20 years ago, you guys were a pioneer at improving informal transit, paratransit in Dakar. Can you tell us a little bit about that early experience?
Thank you very much. As you know, for Dakar and several African cities, artisanal transport play a key role for daily mobility, and they both economic growth, social inclusion, and allowing thousands of jobs with affordable fares. And we know that they offering also transport service in more remote areas, and give a robust alternative when we don't have formal public transportation. For Dakar, let me just give you some key data. We know that with our studies, 80% of motorized travel are done by public transport in Dakar. And with our household survey done in 2015, we see that 91% of modal share is attributed to paratransit. 10 years after that, we see that 35 modal split go to paratransit organized in federal structure named AFTU. So what we do for that, a strong governance framework that work with the Ministry of Transportation, the Ministry of Finance, and we have an option for progressive formalization. And we bring together 14 operator cooperative to put together the fleet and have a convention with CETUD for building a new network that work for professionalization objective. This is the first case. The second one after governance is to centralize management and operation. For that, we have a satellite structure named CapTrans, and we can mutualize technical assistance and capacity building, and also the line and the services. And last but not least, we work a lot for financement, and this is a PPP choice where the operators bring 25% of financement, and the state of Senegal give subsidize and free taxes for the renewal of the vehicles.
And so just to clarify, the last point in the vehicle, the fleet renewal, is 25% capital input from these paratransit operators?
Absolutely. We have to engage the actors for this project. This is a mean for having a real commitment for profitability, and as you know, CETUD give the capacity building for operating and help them for taxes with the Ministry of Finance. But the real mean to engage the operators for profitability, for a strong management of their vehicles, is to come with initial investment.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Excellent. Let's go to Jamie next to you. Jamie Leather is the director of the Transport Sector Office in the Asian Development Bank. Jamie, I know you've been working all over Asia for a long time. Tell across Asia what you see, East and South Asia everywhere, just a plethora of different paratransit solutions. Jeepneys famously in the Philippines, angkots or bajajes in Indonesia, auto rickshaws in South Asia. What do you see as some of the common characteristics of these paratransit systems? Maybe I think would be really rich if you give us one or two very concrete examples of how ADB has worked with them to try to steer them into the direction of formalization.
The characteristics, I think a lot of it goes back to your three first points, but the characteristics with that plethora of names and different vehicle types, and the names covered various different vehicle types as well. So hard to define that, but I think as you put it, we need it, it's here to stay, but we also need to look at the improvements. I want to focus a little bit on those last two. It's here to stay, but it is evolving over time. And city governments need to adapt as the modes of transport change and the demand for transport change. If I can give one example, and it comes from a sort of a bit left field, but hopefully it demonstrates one of the critical implications of paratransit or its importance and how it ebbs and flows. And this is in Bangkok. So we're talking tuk-tuks in this case, three-wheelers. The city authority had started to control them in terms of the areas they could travel or traverse the paratransit. So they weren't fully regulated or marginalized, but they couldn't go on the main road. So they were sort of serving different areas. Fare was pretty much set, negotiated. What had happened, they moved into the tourist areas where they could perhaps charge slightly higher fares than they may be able to get to as a normal form of transport, that last mile connectivity. Our private sector arm actually provided some funding for e-tuk-tuk production. 1,500 vehicles to a company in China, but these were being operated in Bangkok, Thailand. And they're operating now. So it's a move me. And it's the point I want to get across here is that the tuk-tuk was decreasing quite rapidly, either because of the controls that had been put in or the shift to motorbike taxis who could go on the main road. So the tuk-tuks were basically being utilized as tourist attractions and not much in terms of the integrated transport solution or last mile connectivity. What we have seen with the Move Me is that a lot more residents of Bangkok have started to take these up. And that was the need to integrate the upfront capital cost with a payment mechanism and app booking. Therefore, the fares were set. So bringing in some new technological advances within a very traditional form of transport, paratransit, the tuk-tuks in Bangkok, has given them a new lease of life because the local residents are now using them as an integrated form of that last mile connectivity, knowing full well that the vehicle will arrive and the price will be set, which was alienating them or had been alienating them when they'd been put more into the margins by the city's authorities.
Fascinating. So it sounds like you Uberized the tuk-tuks in Bangkok, right?
And then clean them up.
And then clean them up. Very good. So let's go to our last panelist, and then I promise we'll go to the audience for questions. But our last panelist on the far left, Maina Solidonio, who's the Secretary of Transport of the City of Rio de Janeiro. Maina, welcome. Tell us a little bit about, I know the share of paratransit operators in Rio is much lower, I think, than in many of the examples that we've heard so far, and but it still remains an important source of transport, especially for vulnerable populations in terms of accessibility. Can you talk a little bit about how Rio made this gradual transition from informal, semi-formal services to formal ones, and what were some of the key turning points in that process?
Thank you. Now, first of all, Rio has 3.5 million passengers a day, and the van systems are responsible for 10% of the ridership. So it's a lot. Because of Rio geography, they're really important because we have like the slums. Some days are really steep, and only the combis, this specific type of vans, they are able to come up. And also we have this new category. There's this moto taxi. because some of those streets are so narrow that not even a van can go up. So they're really important for connectivity for this vulnerability, most vulnerable areas. So we start the formalization of these operators in 2009 in Rio. We started by group procurements, but there was a lot of problem with connecting to criminality, homicides, all kind of stuff. So we decided to go for individual operators license. So we have more than like 2,000 for minivans operators and 1,000 of these combis for these slums operators. And they're all formalized in a way, but in different degrees of formalizations. And what happens then, these procurements went from 2009 to 2012. And then when they went to the west zone of the cities, these bus operators stopped the procurements because they say the design of the routes was hurting their profitability. So we end up with this dual system when some of the operators have a specific route and other ones, they just have this area that they can just ride without a specific route. This is very bad for fiscalization because then I cannot find someone that goes out of the route because the same partner has this different permission. But we stand in with this system till the pandemic. And in the pandemic, there was this big disruption on the bus regular lines. And the paratransit was super important to really like take and ride people where they had no bus. So it was super important for us. And then because of the pandemic, what happened that they went to this limbo because they started doing vehicle inspections. They didn't have money to pay fines or to pay for the taxes. So they went to this limbo of formalization where they didn't go to any inspection. So we had to waive them of the fines. And in this a new cadastre for us to know who are alive, who are not. And then we add, and to attract them, we offer them this new ticketing system with the new machines that they pay half of they used to pay for having cashless ticketing on the buses. So this was a big attraction for them to come back to a more formal relationship with the Secretaria.
Excellent. I'd love to hear more about that maybe in the questions. So let us go to the questions and we'll begin, Hein, maybe with some of the questions. I don't know if something came in. Do you have a microphone or just grab one?
There are 3 questions online. How many do you want?
Go ahead, ask the 3. We'll...
The first one is about what is the futures of paratransit? Complete professionalizations in the long run? Or then wouldn't you run into issues of the former system, example, operational costs, fare not enough, etc.? The second question is, in the past, BRT is used as a tool to restructure governance reform and capital infusion to the sector. Do you think electrifications of minibuses or 2- and 3-wheeler can play a role in improving the system? The third question is, extreme weather events are becoming more frequent. Beyond professionalizations and decarbonizations, how can cities and paratransit play a role in climate adaptation, for example, in terms of heat and flooding?
Okay, great, Hein. So to anyone that wants to answer, I think the first question was, what's the future of paratransit? Is it just full formalization at some point? The second one was, say that again, please. Okay. Great. So I see Jamie has a hand up and Jean-Jacques, do you want to, let's start here. Go ahead.
Okay, on the future of professionalization and paratransit, we have had in the past a lot of paradigm shift on paratransit. So I don't want to go back on that. But at CODA2, we think that this is not the end of the story. Things are still evolving. And today the dominant trend is to consider that paratransit reform is a precondition to investment in institutional public transport systems. And that's very relevant. But as you said, paratransit is going to continue to be the dominant mode in many cities for decades. And so maybe the next paradigm could be that for cities and for international financial institutions, maybe, it could be to consider mobility as a system where paratransit has and will continue to have a very strong role, not only as a feeder for mass transit, but, for example, for accessibility to the suburbs, to the peri-urban areas, which are growing everywhere, and for every specific needs of the population where paratransit is better than public transport system. So that could be the future in terms of paradigm.
So I see a couple of others who want to come in, Tiano, Maina, and then Jamie. Go ahead, Tiano.
Thank you. I think that we have to take things in the progressive way. That it takes time, and in Dakar, what we done, we put in place a permanent consultation framework for dialogue, for assessment, and for building the future with paratransit actors. I think that it is also important to take the opportunity given by introducing mass transit, BRT, the restructuring of the network, to have on board paratransit. So the company operating the BRT system work with our sovereign fund, and local operators have participation in this company. And after that, the last milestone, we work for the second generation of formalization, and this take in account energy and digital transition. So we hope that in less than 5 years, we're gonna have a metropolitan network where feeder lines, but also regular lines will integrate fare, and will have a more decent job also with these actors.
So I think it's a good case. We'll come to the audience here in just a moment, but I think Maina, you want to come in, and then Jamie.
I think for the future, one thing that's really important is about having data. So I think with the ticketing system online, we have data about their profitability, and also we can make electronic fines for them if we go out of the route. This is really important. I think something it seems really simple, was really important, is fare integration and physical integration into BRT terminals. So they know they have a place as a feeder, and they feel very like I'm official now. I have a place. I'm not leaving people on the street. This was very important. We have like 7 new terminals on BRT that was launched in the last 2 years, and we had this space like official for them. That was really important. And I think fare integration and some kind of payment per kilometer, so they don't fight for the passenger in the street, because they have this preserved incentive to they want to steal the ridership from the bus or from the subway, so they can see really as a feeder system.
Excellent. Jamie, last
Can I?
maybe let's take some questions, and I'll go to you first after the Jamie. You go ahead with this one.
I want to talk about a sort of more holistic in terms of the overall modernization or formalization of paratransit. We are also providing support to Davao, a city in the southern Philippines. This is a huge undertaking. The Davao Public Transport Modernization or High Priority Transport System. Total cost for paratransit, mind you, is 1.7 billion. So it's absolutely huge, but it's 672 kilometers of transport routes. It's the entire city, 4 different tiers, feeder routes, and it's replacing all sorts of aspects within the fare structures, the routing, the demand supply side, the operational efficiencies, cash cash in hand for the operations and moving it towards those. So that's one scale of ensuring that the entire network is modernized, better vehicles are brought in, the safety, the security, and 24-hour operations, a lot of call centers in the Philippines, and they need services. What we were seeing is that if it rained, then the service is stopped. So how do we provide transport as a service, ensuring that the connectivity and the distribution network that Paratransit provide is still maintained, but it is a very large loan, and a lot of it is going, 125 million is going it on livelihood, retraining and reskilling, which is how we got around the entire workforce being put into different roles and different responsibilities as well.
Great. I see a line has formed behind the microphone in the back. I also saw one hand up over here. Bunch of line. Do you guys want to make a way to the line where we can pass a microphone around? Please go ahead, introduce yourself. And since we have a lot of people wanting to ask questions, one question, not the typical World Bank question with 4 parts or something, just the.
Absolutely. I'm Benji de la Peña. I'm the CEO of the Shared Use Mobility Center and the chair of the Global Network for Popular Transportation. We like to call it popular transportation. So here's a question which I heard notes of. It was all I can do from not standing up in innovation, particularly for Abimbola. Tell us about moving at the speed of trust with the paratransit or popular transportation operators, particularly in the context of understanding them first as SMEs, as businesses, rather than just vehicles running the transportation system. How do you engage that, and how has it changed how you thought about both the operators and the service?
Great. I love that phrase, moving at the speed of trust. Let's take maybe 2 more questions. Abimbola obviously has your name on it. Next, please.
Thank you so much. I'm Dr. Harsh Verma, founder of PeopleSense.ai, coming from Silicon Valley and Sacramento, the city of Sacramento. So this panel is really very dear to me, very close to my heart, because when the Sacramento Kings was being launched, the Transportation Authority reached out and had a challenge to help see how we can help paratransit riders during that time when there's large crowding taking place. And also, as I asked in the plenary session, crowding is a big challenge. So being on Intel's innovation board, we looked at that. We are able to track the data and create real-time heat maps and inject AI into this. So I just like to ask this panel, if you have a lot of data on some of this, the operations, have you thought of seeing how, you could inject AI and see how this could be helpful as a method for predicting demand-based, helping out for the paratransit riders, in addition to other operations, of course. So that's all. I'll stop over here. A lot of things to talk about later.
So afterwards, does anybody want to take a stab at that? The offer of AI from Silicon Valley? Anybody wants to? Does anybody feel inspired to take that question? Mina, was that a yes or? Okay, wait, hold on. We'll take one more. So Abimbola will go first, then Mina, and then please.
Hi, Sveta Malusheva. I lead the iConnect for Impact program and transport impact evaluations funded by FCDO, but based here at the World Bank. And we have the pleasure to work closely with 2 of the leaders on the panel, working with La Mata Institute. And we work a lot on data and analytics. And so very much related to the last question and to the point made by Mina is more on how you have used data and analytics to get to where you are today in terms of paratransit, and also where you see the future in terms of how investing more in better evidence and in higher quality data can help you in terms of the transport networks and in terms of providing more accessibility for the cities. Thank you.
Great. So Abimbola, why don't we start with you, Mina, and then I'll let you guys think about who takes the 3rd question.
Okay, so when we're talking about the relationship between the city and paratransit, it's exactly what Benji said. You need to build trust, and they need to be able to understand that you're not in the business of eradicating them, but you're in the business of bringing them into the fold. And the most important thing is for both sides of the divide to understand that nobody is going to come out of this saying, hey, I'm ecstatic because I've gotten exactly what I want. We're all going to have to give. And we in La Mata have been doing that through dialogue and a lot of conversations. We've been talking to the unions for years. And what we do sometimes is also when we go to programs like this, we go with them. So we work with them, we talk to them. We understand the way they work, because that's another thing. The way a regulated public transport system works is not the way the paratransits work. You'll see one bus and it probably has like 6 pairs of drivers and 6 pairs of drivers and conductors. Now, in a regulated space, you could never think that that is what is happening. In Lagos, some drivers would work 2 days a week. And so that's why you see them driving like crazy, trying to make enough of a living for a week in 2 days. Now, the other side of that is that they have so become used to working 2 days in a week that you now want to bring them into a system and say, oh, by the way, for you to enter the system, you must work every day of the week. And you will wait for a month to get your salary. You are not going to get them to come. So understanding what they're used to and knowing what you can take away and what you can bring. What is it they value? So you think, oh, I'm going to give your drivers insurance. They really don't care, because there are people who live on a day-to-day basis. You need to find what exactly is it that they are passionate about. So sometimes you find that they really don't want to work 5 days a week. So we're talking to them and saying, okay, you don't have to do 5 days a week. Because the other side of the coin is, what do you do with them when you formalize them and you say everybody must work 5 days a week and everybody must do 6 days and you must all do 35 hours in a week and all of those things that happen in a regulated system. They're not used to that. And until we finish off the generation that is not used to that, you can't bring on any new set. So you have to. It is important that you understand what makes them tick. And what makes them tick and I'm going back to my hometown now, in Shomolu, is not what makes them tick in Agege. So you somehow need to understand. There's also the fact that they're local areas and they have their own systems. So they have branches, they have units, they have the nationals. So we are finding ourselves in the place where I have them on speed dial, They're now my personal friends. I go to lunch with them. You do all sorts of crazy things just to get in their heads and understand what is it I need to do to make you trust me. And a lot of that is exactly what Satud was saying, Piano was saying. It's about long-term dialogue. Lamata has been talking to them for 15, 20 years. And we're still not there. But in fairness, we have seen a shift with this bus industry transition program. The first thing I'd say is that persistence. They now see that state is not abating. We're not leaving them alone. And we are now designing programs specifically for them to say, okay, this is where we will constantly talk to you until we get to the point where both of us can say, all right, I may not be 100% satisfied, but I am in a place where I think I can trust you enough to work with you. And we're starting to see that now. And we're now realizing that from that perspective, they themselves are coming forward. I was sharing with Benji the other day that I had a conversation with them 4 years ago. And I said, you can't keep harassing drivers off the streets, asking them for money. You need to give me a bank account so that I agree they must pay union fees. So that's the first thing, because I've always thought government wouldn't want to pay. We want to pay union fees, but I don't want your men chasing drivers on the streets. 4 years of conversation just to get a bank account number. But we did just about 4 weeks ago. So the only thing now is that, madam, I haven't seen my money. But it's okay, But that for me is a breakthrough, because the ability for them to recognize that state would pay union fees says that state is willing to negotiate with them, because for us, we see them first as that. They are a union. And if every transport worker is willing to pay, then maybe they won't feel the need to be chasing people off the street. So there's a lot that you need to do with them. And it's never easy. It's not a conversation of 1 year. Lamata has been in these conversations for 15 odd years at least. And we are going to continue to have those conversations until they feel comfortable enough with us. But let us say something. Lagos is very different to most cities in Africa. We are a people of over 20 million. I always say pick a number between 20 million and 25 million, anywhere in there, we're there, right? Now, on top of that, we do 22 million trips a day. We cannot rely on paratransit for that. So when we're talking about sustainability, it has to come through mass transit. And everybody must know their place. And unfortunately, yes, government abdicated its position and allowed the paratransit to own the space. So when government wants to come back, the paratransit has been running all over the space for over 15 years. You don't come back in a year, you don't come back in 2, you don't come back in 10 years. So the fact that you're having conversations of 10, 15 years, it's fine. But where is your ultimate goal? And that's why I say that Lagos is very different. If I am catering to 22 million trips a day, and I have about 40% of that is walking, and don't get all excited, it's not walking because they want to, it's walking because they have to. So there's a world of difference, in the West, you're having a nice leisurely walk. Where we come from is about walking 2 hours just to get to work. So don't see the walking as a good thing. It's not necessarily a good thing. So how do I ensure I cater to 22 million trips a day? It's not through paratransit, but it is with the help of paratransit.
That's a good place to leave it. Abimbola, thank you so much. Mina, can AI save Rio? Yeah.
No, I'm gonna splash some water in the AI, sorry. What happens, we had this, as she was saying, you have to listen to their reality. For the new ticketing system, they were very suspective about putting this machine. You have biometrics, a camera inside the minivans. They thought it would be used to spy and to arrest drug dealers in Rio. So we had to go to meetings in every region and explaining, showing the equipment and saying to them, and we are making this great incentive because they used to pay 8% per month for the ticketing system, and now we're charging 4% because it's through a public procurement. And even though it was very suspicious, so what we had to do, listen and adapt. So we developed this cap so the camera doesn't work, an official one from the city hall. So they see I'm official, I'm not putting this informal tag, and the city is understanding my reality that I have the security issue and adapting the system for me. So this is about listening and trying to, because it was more important for me to have data on them than to have a biometrics on all the minivans. So you have to sometimes take a step back. But now they're seeing that it's not using for the spy on them, and they're using the biometrics and it's all working. But this has been 1.5 years of this process. So I think if I talk to AI about this, they will be very scared. So I think it's a step by step. But now with the data, something they want, and when we listen, we want subsidies. So I say, if you want subsidies, you have to give me data. So now they're eager for us to have data and analyze data. But it's it's probably going to be many years before we can really have a subsidize. And because of this, we are managed to have all the names and bank accounts. So we pay them every 2 days with the ticketing system. So we have their contact, and we can reach for them by WhatsApp, by email, by phone, and through their bank. Instead, we had to send a letter and expect them to show in one building. So I think even without AI, we have a lot to achieve.
Great. Loknath, do you want to take the last question, evidence-based or?
So, no, I just wanted to say, when the paratransit going to remain, as you said, with notwithstanding the reforms you have suggested, I just wanted to know from Dr. Harsh whether such kind of tools have been developed based on the AI to have a crowd management, because that actually in a way it's actually directly connected to the safety of the people and the disasters, which happens very often in third world countries pertaining to this. So the tools actually, to my knowledge, what we are doing a lot of work on AI in transport, but I do not think 1 or 2 tools might be there to just manage the crowd.
So thank you so much. So I'll just address that quickly. So yes, if you have the data, then we have some tools. So in fact, we have collected about 100 million records of data sets from various transit agencies, which we have captured during, and mind you, I have to say that all of this data is, not capturing any kind of PII information. So with this data, we build up regression models and we do, different kind of analysis and build up, recommendation engines and provide a lot of recommendations. So we have created about 15 or 16 foundation models. And actually we won this Intel AI PC, which is the latest one, which actually has a neural compute network.
Thank you.
I don't want to.
Brilliant.
Okay,
Sounds like there's lots more for a coffee break.
Yeah.
Let me just do a time check. Look, Matt, just how are we doing, Simon, on time?
We're officially at the end of our time.
Okay. If you're all happy to stay for a few minutes.
One sentence I wanted.
One sentence. I'll give
yeah. Because what all Mania said and all, I think the best thing about paratransit will be that if you make it ease of travel by actually one instrument, like we have done, you buy, you have a card, you travel in anything.
Very good. That was one sentence. Good. We have 3 people. Can you all each ask a 30-second question? Okay, just 30 seconds. And I'm going to challenge our panel to be equally brief in the response. 30 seconds.
Okay, my name is Dimas from WRI Indonesia. I want to ask, when we are talking a lot about investment here, how to make a paratransit drivers or operators bankable, because they are really hard to have a balance sheet, let alone a ledger. Thank you.
Good.
Hi everyone, Andrea Sanghil from the Global Network for Popular Transportation. I wanted to contest something that Jean-Jacques said about reform being a requirement to investment. From what we've seen, usually investment has to come first so that reform is possible. So I wanted to ask the rest of the panelists if they have insights on the level of the service that we're having versus what we would want that requires investment, and it's the road to reform. So if you have insights on that to get the conversation going on about the chicken and egg situation. Thank you.
Very good.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm Alphonse Nkurunziza. I come from Rwanda, from the University of Rwanda. So my question is just simple. So how do you define paratransit? So I always hear this term paratransit, informal public transport, then other people call it popular transport. I don't understand. So basically, can you define that in the context of the in practice? Because Rwanda, at least for Kigali, I was the Director General of the city for some time when we went through transition from more informal public transport to more formalized bit with regulations, with roads operating and everything. But now when it comes, everyone's, hey, Rwanda, you have a paratransit, but what's paratransit? I don't understand.
Good.
So
leave it there.
That one.
So
thank you.
Since we're short on time, I'm going to ask Jean-Jacques just to answer the question just a moment on defining paratransit. Then we had one question on the bankability of paratransit operators. And the third one was the sequencing, investment versus reform. You really have to get the reform first before you qualify. Who wants to take the second and the third one? Hold on. Which one do you want to take, Tiano? Which was the bankability? Which one? Okay. Very briefly, and anybody else wants to come in? Last word? Jamie, I'll give you the last word. Please.
The definition of paratransit for CODA 2 is very clear. And you find that in our previous publication, and the title is Paratransit, a necessary component in a dual system. And our definition is when you have a fragmentation, a huge fragmentation of bus ownership. And just one word on the bankability, it's a project that we are implementing right now in Madagascar. So maybe during the coffee break, I can explain you how we work on that.
So an invitation, bankability, coffee. Tiano.
I think that we have to talk about real costs, the truth of costs. Because as soon as we shift to the real costs and get near to conventional transport, this is the goal, to move people in the sustainable way. And we see that things are very fragile. So we have to take in account that our goal as a public institution is to do assessment, to implement public transport, but to talk about socioeconomic profitability, but not only bankability and financial profitability. So we have huge reform to do for moving Africa. States and government have to take in account that cutting air pollution, making city safe, and creating job need to finance public transport. And so from that, we need to have subsidized and second generation of formalization with equilibrium of operating, bringing the support of our government. So reform, yes, but if we talk only if our goal with Paratransit is only bankability, we are not on sustainable transportation.
Thank you. Jamie, last word.
Yeah, very quickly on the banking of the unbankable or its access to finance. I think, as you put it, it's the Uberization, and we've heard many examples. This is increasingly becoming the way forward, or there is a set model that apps, payment facilities, SME type financing, outside of a more traditional banking, going and asking for a loan. That seems to be what's really starting to see results.
Excellent. Let me ask you, please, a big round of applause for our panel. And I don't know if we have a coffee break or something outside, or if there's something, but I know there's a lot of questions that actually were in the room that didn't get an answer. Please grab our panelists informally and follow up with your questions. And thank you very much for joining us for this session. Thank you. Hey. Oh, of course I had to look without the hair. My God.